Hi again, everybody. Scott Costa, the publisher of TED Magazine. Thanks for joining me for another Distributed with TED Magazine podcast on both video and audio. Great to have you back again. 2020, tough year. And one of the things that you went through was certainly a ton of personal growth. You're doing things that you never thought you were doing in the past, new job responsibilities. It's kind of become an interesting year and you've learned a lot of things, and now it's 2021 and you got to think, okay, is there more personal growth for me? The answer is yes. So how do you incentivize yourself? How do you inspire yourself to get to that point? I had Desiree Grace and Andrea Olson on the podcast to talk about personal growth, goals, personal growth ideas, ways to keep yourself inspired, ways to keep yourself going, ways to continue to build your skills in 2021. And they had some great insight for us. And I'm really glad that they joined the podcast to kind of talk me through and now talk you through ways to obviously continue your personal growth throughout the next year. So not going to make you wait for it. Here it is, my Distributed with TED Magazine podcast with Desiree Grace and Andrea Olson. Enjoy it. All right, we are back with Desiree Grace, Andrea Olson. We are talking about personal development. Let me introduce my guests to you again. Andrea Olson, give them a wave. Andrea is a strategist, speaker, author, and customer centricity expert. As the CEO of Pragmatic, she helps organizations of all sizes, from small businesses to Fortune 500, and has served as an outside consultant for EY and McKinsey. Andrea is the author of 2 books, The Customer Mission, Why It's Time to Cut the Blank and Get Back to the Business of Understanding Your Customers, and No Disruptions, The Future of Mid-Market Manufacturing. Desiree Grace, wave at him, Desiree. Desiree is currently the VP of Strategic Distribution North America for Panduit. She develops, leads, and drives channel partner strategy, channel partner marketing, and programs. She develops and deploys the channel sales team, and she manages the financial indicators within North America. Desiree and Andrea, thanks again for joining us on the Distributed with TED Magazine podcast. Great to have you back.
Glad to be here, Scott.
All right, we are talking personal development and personal growth. And certainly we grew because we had to in 2020, and now it's 2021. We got to move forward on that. And Andrea, we definitely want to kick this off with you because we want to talk about reinvention, which I think is important. I think people felt like they may have reinvented a little bit last year, but you're saying there's more reinvention to happen. Tell me, in terms of personal growth, how you see it for the year ahead.
You know, it's interesting because we like to talk about reinvention as this thing that happens every, 5-10 years, or maybe there are these milestones in our lives, midlife crisis where they occur. Mm-hmm. And it's just a matter of waiting until that moment, and then it happens and we have to struggle with it. And then we make our way through it, and now we're back into this normalcy. Mm-hmm. When really reinvention shouldn't be that dramatic. It should be something that's small that you do each and every day.
Right.
It's something that helps you grow as a person. I mean, if you think about, you might think about a grandparent and you go into their home and it's a time capsule from, late 60s. What does that say to you? Does that say that they are stuck in a time and place where they thought, this is it, that's the end, this is good enough, this is perfect for me, and anything new that comes along, I completely resist it, I completely reject it. When, if we're talking about personal growth, growth happens just like a plant, a little bit at a time, each and every day. And so as you think about reinvention, thinking about it as a habit, think about it as you get up and you exercise every day, you brush your teeth every day, and you have to really put aside time to just have that reflection of, am I doing this on autopilot, or am I doing this, whatever activity it may be, for a true purpose? Is there another new way that I can learn or change this slightly to do it better, faster, differently? And I think that's something that we lose sight of.
So Andrea, how do you, following up on that, how do you strategize that, or how do you kind of plot that, moving ahead? I mean, it's easy for me to say, hey, I'm going to start exercising again. But like people with New Year's resolutions, come, January 14th, it's like, yeah, I'm not running anymore.
Oh,
so
right.
So how do you kind of continue that growth, that personal growth, while still maintaining obviously everything else that you're trying to accomplish in your life during a pandemic.
It's starting small, and I believe it's staying small, because small things build up to something big, right? You save $1 a day, over time, that becomes a lot of money, right?
Mhm.
And then maybe after time you say, well, I can save $2 a day, and you change it slightly. And that becomes something significant. So, just like you were talking about with exercise, people say, all right, January 2nd, I'm hitting the treadmill, I'm lifting weights. You spend, I don't know, 2 hours, 3 hours doing this. That's not sustainable. But you know what? 15 minutes is sustainable. 5 minutes is sustainable. And you feel like maybe you're not making the progress you want to see, but it's cumulative. And so when we talk about change and we talk about sustaining change, you have to look at everything all the time and get in the mindset of, how can I tweak this just slightly, right? Every time, a great simple example is, let's say, think about your folder structure on your computer, right? And some components of it are probably a hot mess, okay? And the next time you go into your desktop, you say, you know what? I'm just going to organize these 5 things. And then the next day, I'm just going to organize these 5 things. Don't go down the rabbit hole, right? Unless you have a block of time, don't worry about it. Because in 3, 4, 5 weeks, guess what? It's fixed. And now that problem's gone. And now you're in maintenance mode. So as we think about change, it's about making change digestible and making it a daily habit. It's start changing your mindset about how you think about it.
So what you're saying is it's pieces, but it leads to, again, your word, reinvention, where it becomes, hey, you know what? I'm stair-stepping my way toward this reinvention. Sometimes it can be, again, if you're doing it in 5-minute chunks or 5 projects at a, small projects at a time, maybe you don't realize that you're getting there faster than you thought.
Exactly.
Interesting. So Desiree, let me jump over to you then, because, again, I know you have, we traded some emails before we got started, and you have personal development goals for the year ahead. Let's start at the beginning. How'd you set them? How'd you say, okay, this is what I want to do? Take us behind the curtain a little bit about, sort of the strategy behind how you wanted to create your personal growth for this year.
So from a professional, personal perspective, I was thinking about, how do I want to approach 2021? And when I was thinking about this, and I do my best thinking when I'm walking my dog, because I'm by myself and I don't have a podcast that I'm listening to usually. And I thought, I really want to continue growing. I want to continue evolving. I just want to get better at my job and the things I do. And then I thought about it some more, and I thought about, there's some really small things where I know I can do better, or my team can do better. And I settled on a couple things. The first one was, I want to be more proactive and get ahead of things. So if something was a pain point last year and I felt my team and I were being reactive, I'm very intentionally trying to be proactive and get ahead of it. So it could be, hey, last year we had some negotiations around this after we rolled it out. I'd like the team to have a meeting before we roll it out and talk about, what does success look like? What's the feedback we got last time? And can we improve our approach based on the feedback? So, and I actually had a meeting at 8:00 this morning within that framework. I also think, and if you want to go behind the curtain, I'll share something.
Absolutely.
We are really busy. Mm-hmm. And in a lot of cases, we'll schedule a follow-up meeting. I'll schedule a follow-up meeting and say, okay, we're going to revisit this topic in 2 weeks. Well, then you look at everybody's calendar. I use scheduling assistant because I try to be respectful. So now the meeting's 3.5 weeks out. When I scheduled the meeting, I was crystal clear on what we wanted to accomplish. Fast forward 3.5 weeks, I might have left one meeting to go to the next, and it takes me 5 minutes to kind of refocus, recenter, wrap my head around, what are we going to do? All right. Not respectful to my colleagues, not really respectful to myself either. So I thought about this and I thought I can do better. So what I started doing, back to Andrea's point about just real small continuous tweaks in the idea of a growth mindset, in the idea of continuous improvement, and it's something that evolves. It's not that drastic 3 hours at the gym. I said, okay, from now on, when I schedule a meeting, in that meeting, I'm going to put an agenda. This is one small little itty bitty thing, but oh my gosh, it has already made my life easier. I started doing it about halfway through December. But I think all of us try the night before or early that morning to kind of look at our calendar, make sure we're prepped, we've got all our ducks in a row, we're ready for our meetings, we kind of know what we need to be doing. I put some thoughts on paper prior to our podcast, just points I wanted to make sure that I had my head in the game. But just by putting an agenda, even if it's just 3 bullet points, the purpose of this meeting is to accomplish XYZ, review ABC. It's a discovery meeting. It's a resolution meeting. It's here's 3 options. Let's settle on one, whatever. It's such a small thing, but gosh, I should have been doing it, a long time ago. But, hey, we all have room for improvement. We all have room to get better. We all have small ways in which we can up our game and bring our best to work every day. And to her point, small tweaks. I think in a lot of cases, if those small tweaks are sustained, they're going to help you keep up your fitness regimen, whether it's work fitness or whether it's physical fitness.
I agree. So let me follow up with that, Andrea, Desiree, let me follow up with you on that one real quick about get better. Because I feel like, and I don't disagree with you, those small things, again, adding an agenda to your meetings and making sure that you're using scheduler, I think are all great. They're not necessarily, for lack of a better term, recognizable by everybody. And so you have to figure out ways to self-inspire yourself to continue your own personal growth. And so you're doing these things, which is fantastic that you're doing them, but they may not necessarily be recognized by everybody around you. So how do you self-inspire yourself to continue, again, like if I'm working out and I lost 5 pounds, it's like, oh, great, maybe I can lose 3 more pounds. But in some of these things that you're doing, people may not recognize them, off the bat. So how do I continue to self-inspire myself to say, I need to continue to improve. I need to be, again, a better manager, a better leader. I want to have personal growth this year. How do I do that without getting any feedback of, you're doing great?
So I would make the argument that doing things because you're doing them because you want to get recognition is not the best motivator or the best reason why. We all love it when people notice something and say, if someone were to say, hey, Desiree, you're running a tighter, more organized meeting. You're demonstrating slightly better leadership when you're running a meeting. That's great. Don't get me wrong. I would not turn that down. But I also know within myself, I saw an area for me to do better. And I said, okay, I'm going to do better. And this is what I think I'm going to start doing. And I think it's going to make my life and everybody else's lives better. Sometimes you just got to do it because you see a need and you step up and you fulfill that need. Whether it's you see a need to lose weight because you don't want to go buy a whole new wardrobe, or you see a need to run a better meeting and you do it because it's the right thing to do. Some of that just has to be internal motivation and an internal desire to grow and continuously improve. Not everybody has that. I'd make the argument if they're listening to this podcast, they're at least mildly interested in this subject. but I don't know how you manufacture that desire to grow and improve in someone. I think we all know those people that hate change.
Mhm.
And in a lot of cases, they get frustrated, they get left behind. You can try having a conversation with them, but some of that has to come from within. And I'm a big believer in personal responsibility. So I don't know if that actually answers your question or not, but I tried.
No, it does. No, that's good. But so, Andrea, I'm going to follow up with you on that, though, because again, using some of what Desiree just said about, inspiration, I think I know a lot of people had a lot of personal and professional growth last year because we were forced to grow personally and professionally. I mean, outside forces of a pandemic and different ways that we had to do business forced us to learn new ways to do stuff. And, again, talk in groups like this. And now I'm doing video podcasts when I, didn't think I'd ever figure out how to do an audio podcast, for crying out loud. So, I mean, we've all grown. And I feel like, again, there's a human nature there's a percentage of people who say, okay, I've grown enough. Like, can we just sit here for a little while? I'm kind of want to, for lack of a better term, coast a little on my personal developments. But how do you get them to continue to, what's the inspiration? How do I keep people around me and myself personally, to continue to grow when I've already grown so much in the last 10 months?
Yeah, you're done. I mean, that's
right.
Yes,
Isn't
right.
this enough?
Check the box.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd love to see how your home is decorated if it's, in that time capsule, right? It's interesting because, there are some people that are very resistant to change. And this started way, way, way back, right? In any organization, you're kind of getting someone plopped in and they have fundamentally all this historical baggage, right? So that could be, their parents were that way, maybe, their family's that way. Right. There's a lot of nuances and psychological reasons. Why?
Let me add on to that too. The guy next to me is that way. I'm not seeing him grow. What am I killing myself for?
Right. Great point. So there's a couple aspects to it, right? One is fear, right? So if I learn something new, it doesn't work out, I could be chastised for it. I could, have some, failing for it, whether it's embarrassment or, a dock in pay, who knows what it may be. There's also if I don't have to do more work if no one else has to do more work, right? Because I'm not getting paid more, I'm not incentivized.
Yeah.
So a big part of that is a cultural problem, right? It's an attitude problem that's been fostered and reinforced, whether intentionally or not, within the organization, right? And it's cases where people that do less tend to be rewarded. Everyone is going to follow. People aren't stupid, but fundamentally, if you're breaking it down to just personal growth outside of that environment, it's one of those things where you have to say, I'm going to learn this so I can add value to me in the sense of my skill sets, me in the sense of a potentially valued employee in another environment, right? I'll tell you that one of the folks I work with in a different organization, Zoom is difficult. Zoom's tough.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And it's a constant kickoff of like, I'm not going to set up the Zoom meeting. I don't know how, or I don't make it to the Zoom meeting on time because the link didn't work. I didn't get the updated calendar. I mean, there's a litany of excuses. And I think a big portion of that is fear, right? This is unfamiliar territory. But the other portion of that is there's no incentive for him personally. Older gentleman, looking to retire soon. I don't need this skill set. I'm not going to use it again going forward. And then the organization he's with, administrator will set it up. Don't worry about it. So, as we were talking about in another one of our video podcasts, context is important. So as an individual, you need to say, what's my motivation for doing this? How can I do this just for me, right? It's not about the dopamine hit I get from a friend saying, oh my God, you use Zoom? That is awesome. I don't know how to use it. Tell me how. it's about just saying, I know, you know, I feel smarter, better for it. You have this ability to teach others now, which should have some level of personal satisfaction. And Zoom is a simple, easy example, but it has to be for yourself. It always has to be for yourself. And you can take those skills and move on to some other place that maybe will appreciate them more.
And so Desiree, then to follow up on that, have you created sort of your own, incentive plan for your development, throughout the year? I mean, what are you going to do? What do you recommend people do? Say, hey, you know what? I'm really glad that, the way I'm running my meetings now for the past 6 months have been really great. So I'm going to reward myself with whatever. Have you set something like that up, or tell me kind of how you're, modifying and measuring how your growth is going?
That's a tough question, actually.
I know, that's why I asked it to you. Go get
them. For me, I'm always cognizant of wanting to do better. I haven't hit a place where I'm complacent. And, maybe it's cultivating that growth mindset that they talk to grade school kids about. But, I am cognizant that I want to improve. And in a lot of cases, it's just small ways where I say, yeah, I can do better. How am I going to do better? What's something, and if it's a small change and it works, then I just keep doing it. And if something goes well, that's great. But if I see an area where I personally think I can improve, then, I try to do it. But that's sort of who I try to be, is someone who is continually growing and improving. And I don't think it starts and stops at January 1. I don't think it stops and starts with a 5-year plan. And, here's the other thing. Not everything's going to work, and not everything's going to work for everybody. Somebody may like going to the gym every day. Somebody else may say, I'm going to just stop drinking during the week if I want to lose weight, whatever. Everybody's got their thing that works for them. So what works for me may not work for Andrea. But I think 2 takeaways could be for the audience. Number 1, constant improvement, constant reinvention can be small tweaks that are sustainable. And I think you have to have the personal desire to grow and improve. And it doesn't need to be big or flashy. It doesn't need to be public. It doesn't need to be something that's going to give you a gold star. But you can derive personal satisfaction out of, hey, I'm getting better at X. And I know it's because I'm doing Y. So I'm going to keep doing Y until it stops working. Because, things change. Y may not be effective, and you may need to move on to Z.
Right. You brought up, we talked a little bit ago about, again, what they're teaching grade school kids about growth. But I think it translates to, doesn't matter how old you are. So get into a little bit about what it is that they're telling these kids about that shows their growth, again, as they're dealing with what they're dealing with, because it's really kind of a lifelong lesson.
So, it is really interesting when you become a parent or when you become a mentor. You learn as much, or when you're a teacher, you learn as much from your students, you learn as much from your kids, you learn as much from your mentees, hopefully, as what you're contributing, especially if you bring that mindset to it. So the little sticker my daughter has on her Chromebook about a growth mindset says, I can learn from my mistakes. I can improve by working hard. I will never give up. I am determined to do my best. Self-reflection will help me succeed. I can overcome challenges with effort. and I will train my brain. So yeah, maybe that's designed for a second grader, but I'd make the argument it's a good reminder for all of us. So
I agree, especially the train my brain one. That's great. It's good to have, and it's good to hear those things. I need to write those down. I'm going to put them up over here on my wall, so I've got them near me, all the time. Andrea, what do you see as sort of the downside of companies, businesses, not necessarily, they could be in the supply chain or not, but the downside of seeing too many people not continuing personal growth, especially now, again, as we're still dealing with interesting economic times. But what's the downside? What's the, what are people outside the company going to see of you when you have so many people who are not trying to experience personal growth?
Well, I think we've all experienced organizations that function that way. If you call, let's say, customer service and try to work out a problem, and there's these layers of bureaucracy, or there's this very highly structured process of this is how we do it, or you hear those words of, well, our process is, or we can't do that because we have A, B, and C in place.
Yeah.
Again, that's this very inward focused approach that's saying, this is what we've done. We've always done it that way. It's worked for us. Yeah. So why should we change? And that it's a weed. It becomes pervasive in the organization. You have one or two people that try to fight that, or new people that come in saying, why are we doing that? It's so inefficient. Customers they're always complaining about it. And then they get squashed and they leave the company because they're fighting this uphill battle. So it's something that we can't just rest on our laurels and say, well, that's Joe. Joe's always been crabby. He doesn't want to change. I'm sorry, Joe. It's either you're going to be part of this culture that is always looking to say, how can we do it better? Or you're not. And we need to have the cojones to say, listen, Joe doesn't fit in this company anymore. That's not what this is about. I'm sorry, Joe. You can give Joe a chance, but Joe needs to find another place to go.
So Joe's going to get changed whether he likes it or not.
The question is he going to embrace it? And is he going to take it on, or is he, so that makes things interesting. And it's going to be an interesting year. We're going to have to follow up on this again, sometime in the summer, to kind of see where people are at and their personal growth goals, and whether or not, how do we keep people moving forward? Because again, I have a lot of respect for what a lot of people did last year in getting outside of their comfort zone, and people who've been doing the same thing for a long time are now doing a whole lot of different things. And I'm definitely impressed by that. So I'm glad that we had a chance at the beginning of the year to talk about personal growth and get into this. And Desiree and Andrea, I appreciate both of you coming on the video podcast. One of the things that I've learned now from our video podcast, that if I don't wear a scarf, I'm not like everybody else. So I'm going to have to work on that. And I will, but maybe next time.
We did not coordinate that.
I know. It just shows you how out of style I am. So I'm going to work on that, at least try and coordinate color coordination or something with you guys. We'll figure it out down the road. But thanks a ton to both of you for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate all of your insight on every podcast you guys have done. It's been great. So thanks for joining me.
Always a pleasure, Scott.
Great. Again, real quick, if folks want to contact me and talk about personal growth or things about TED Magazine or tedmag.com or anything else, again, 2 ways you can do that. One, give me a phone call, 314-812-5311. I'd be happy to talk to you about whatever, or send me an email, scosta, SCOSTA @NAAD.org. We'll set something up so that we can converse back and forth any way we can do it. But again, until we get a chance to talk, thanks everybody for watching and listening to Distributed with TED Magazine.